Hello and welcome to Class Time, your daily classroom for CSEC students. I am Vanessa Francis. We're looking at vocabulary development, which specifically gears towards paper 1. So on paper 1, you have a variety that you may encounter. So you may see synonyms, you may see antonyms, you may see sentence completion. So we're going to look at all three today. Now, in general, you need to have a good vocabulary outside of even paper 1, because remember there's a written paper as well. And that is where you can put your vocabulary development knowledge to good use. So even though we're focusing on paper 1, what I'd advise you to do as we go through the different exercises, please make note of the various new vocabulary items, or maybe an unfamiliar one, something that you heard somewhere at some time but you didn't really focus on it. So any words you're going to see today that are new to you or you haven't seen in a while, make note of them, make note of what they mean as well. So here are our objectives. So of course, you're going to analyze the given sentences. You're also going to select responses to vocabulary cues in given sentences, and you're going to discuss responses for each sentence. Are we ready? All right, let's go. So, the same name game. And of course, if it has the same name, then we're looking at synonyms. Now here are your instructions, and these are the same instructions you're likely to see on the paper. So from the list of alternatives, select the word that is nearest in meaning to the underlined word in each sentence. Now, something you need to remember, you're looking for the word that is closest in meaning. However, the word should also fit into the context of the sentence. So you're likely to see two words that are close in meaning to the target word. However, one word will fit into the context, whereas the other one, not so well. It doesn't fit in the context as well. So those are the two things you need to look out for. The word that fits and the word that means the same thing. So here we go. With great reluctance, Fabian divulged the secret plan to join another team. Your target word is divulged. You have 4 options as usual. Which of those words, based on the meaning of the sentence, is your answer? Did he explain the secret plan? Did he reveal the secret plan? Did he relate the secret plan? Did he declare the secret plan? Which of those best fits the meaning given by divulged in the sentence? By now you should have an answer. Remember, you have to work against the clock. So let's see what the answer is. Revealed. So he revealed the secret plan. So divulged here means nearly the same as revealed. All right, so 1 point for you. Our next sentence. We greatly admired Queenie for her valor. Your target, valor. Which of those 4 options is the closest in meaning to valor that fits the meaning given in the sentence? You have temerity, you have courage, you have spirit, you have dexterity. Valor. What does valor mean? And which one of those meanings fits the sentence? Courage. So in this sentence, we greatly admired Queenie for her courage. Here's our next one. Bruce's team was in an exuberant mood when the sports commentator announced their victory. Exuberant is our target. What does exuberant mean? And which of these 4 words means the same thing as exuberant and fits into the sentence neatly? So we have melancholy, we have enthusiastic, we have carefree, and we have pleasurable. Now, one thing you should also notice, and this is why you need to be careful when you're doing the vocabulary exercises, you have to make sure that you remember at all times what you're focusing on. We're focusing on the synonyms, but what you'll notice is that even though you're focusing on the synonyms, at least one answer will be the antonym. So you have to be careful and keep reminding yourself, I'm looking for the same meaning, because you might mistakenly choose the antonym. All right, so for exuberant, which one is our synonym? Enthusiastic. And while we're on that note, the antonym would have been melancholy. So melancholy would have been the antonym, whereas enthusiastic is the synonym. All right, for our next sentence, none of his classmates can match John's insatiable appetite for chocolate milk. Our word is insatiable. What meaning can you get out of the sentence? Even if you've never heard that word before, what do you think insatiable means? It says none of his classmates can match his insatiable appetite. So something about insatiable means something that what? You can't what? Or you can what? So our options: satiated, controlled, unquenchable, and urgent. Does urgent fit into that sentence? Insatiable appetite, urgent appetite. Does satiated fit into that sentence? We have insatiable, so perhaps satiated is the opposite. Or does it mean the same thing? We have controlled. Nobody can match his controlled appetite. And then we have unquenchable. Nobody can match his unquenchable appetite. So which of those four do you believe is the right one? Unquenchable, correct. So insatiable means the same as unquenchable. So one more point if you got that right. Make sure you're keeping score. All right, let's look at the next sentence. DeAndre hated the fast-paced nature of the big city, so he moved to the countryside, which was more tranquil. Tranquil. What meaning does tranquil have? Even if you've never seen the word tranquil before, look at your sentence. Hated the fast-paced nature of the big city. So something about tranquil is the opposite of fast-paced. So let's look at our responses now. We have remote. Does it mean the same as tranquil? We have exciting. Does that mean the same as tranquil? We have abandoned. We have peaceful. Now look at those four options carefully. Which of those four words most closely means the same as tranquil and fits into the meaning that the sentence is giving you? Remote, exciting, abandoned, or peaceful? Which of those four? Ready? If you said peaceful, give yourself a round of applause. You are on a roll. Peaceful and tranquil in this sentence mean exactly the same thing. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Charmaine's news story revealed the squalor of the old prison cells. And we're looking at squalor. Now, we're looking at prison cells. So that gives you an idea of what squalor means, even if you've never seen the word before. Because the typical prison cell is not luxurious. The typical prison cell is not a 5-star hotel type setting. So if you're thinking of a prison cell and it says a news story revealed the squalor, you understand what kind of meaning you're going for. So of these four, which one do you believe conveys the same meaning as squalor? So you have security, you have strength, you have ambiance, and you have filthiness. Revealed the squalor. Because it's prison cells, you might be thinking, security looks like a good option. You might be thinking, prison cells, strength is a good option because the cells should be strong. But remember, it says old prison cells. Ambiance. Remember, we talked about connotation and denotation. So when you talk about ambiance, you're talking about something that is good, something that is desirable. So, does ambiance fit into this sentence? And then you look at filthiness. Does that fit into this sentence? So what do you think is the meaning of squalor based on the options you have here? Which one would you choose? I hope you chose filthiness. And if you did, one more round of applause for you, one more point for you. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Uncle Andrew was determined in his decision to close the company. And we're looking at the word determined. And please notice, when you're using it in this context, you must have a D on the end. So it's not Uncle Andrew was determined. He was determined. So the adjective needs to be determined. Now, look at our options. We have defiant. He was defiant in his decision. Anxious. He was anxious in his decision. Resolute in his decision. High-handed in his decision. Now, if you think carefully, when you describe someone as being determined, do you describe them as just being defiant? Do you describe them as being anxious, as being resolute, or being high-handed? I can almost guess that quite a number of people are going to be distracted by one of those words. However, when you describe someone as being determined, that person is resolute, not defiant, because I know some people were thinking defiant. Be honest now, you were thinking defiant, but resolute. Defiant conveys a whole different type of meaning. When you're defiant, you're not just determined and you're aggressive with it as well. Our next sentence. Monica did everything possible to thwart the efforts of the criminals who tried to break into her shop. So again, we can use the context. We can use the idea that somebody is trying to break into the shop and the owner of the shop is trying to thwart their efforts. So right there, you have an idea of what thwart might mean. So let's look now. Weaken, ridicule, obstruct, defy, thwart. Now be very careful. Thwart the efforts. What can you do to someone's effort to do something bad? You weaken the effort, you ridicule the effort, you obstruct the effort, or you defy the effort. You have at least 3 options that I know you're going to have to puzzle over. However, only one of those 3 is correct. Ready? Ready? All right. So to thwart is to obstruct. So you're trying to prevent this from happening. So you're going to do things to obstruct this thing occurring. All right. So let's look at the next sentence now. The plan to use toxic waste to generate electricity in Surama is to be deplored. And we're focusing on the word deplored. Now, here's the thing with deplored. If you've never seen it before, you definitely have to rely on the sentence to help you. So the plan to use toxic waste to generate electricity. Toxic waste is not something good. So if you deplore it, then the idea to be conveyed is that it's something bad. So your options now: lamented, undervalued, mistrusted, destroyed. When you deplore something, what do? This is a plan to use toxic waste to generate electricity. Might be a good plan, might not be a good plan. And because it is deplored, it is also lamented. So the plan is lamented because think about the situation you're given. Toxic waste is not something good. So you're going to deplore the plan, you're going to lament the plan. It's something bad. So it's something that you are going to have negative feelings towards. All right? Our next sentence. Developed countries should give assistance to third world countries to alleviate the sufferings of their indigent population. Indigent. Please do not mix it up with indigenous. Indigent. So developed countries should give assistance to third world countries to alleviate the sufferings of their indigent population. Now, we have watched various news items across the world. We know of developed and developing countries, and we know what is classified as a third world country. So that should help you to get towards understanding what indigent might mean. So your options now: native, needy, helpless, backward. Indigent, remember now it's indigent and not indigenous. There is an answer there that means the same as indigenous. Do not let it distract you. That's why they're called distractors. So, indigent, what does it mean? Ready? Needy. I'm sure some of you might have chosen helpless, but helpless just means that you're incapable of helping yourself. You're not necessarily needy when you're helpless. So needy takes it a step further. So when you're needy, you're not just helpless, you're helpless to the point where you can't fathom anything else. You are at the highest level of helpless that there is. So it's different levels and different layers to it. So you're not just helpless, you're actually needy as well. Next sentence. In his speech, the psychologist gave tacit approval to corporal punishment. Tacit. Have we ever heard that one before? When we heard it, did we pay attention to it? Tacit approval. Now, this is possibly one of those situations where you just have to know the word, because there isn't much in the sentence that really gives you an idea of what it could mean. So you have these options: direct, cautious, clear, and unspoken. Anyone, based on the context, could work, because the context really does not pull you in one direction or the other. So this is where I will advise you again, I will encourage you again to always try and observe the words in your environment. Always try and learn new words daily. Try challenging yourself. 3 words a day, just 3. Or maybe 5 words for the week if you have a really heavy workload. But do not let a week pass without you knowing at least 5 new words. And hopefully this is one of them. So tacit. What does tacit mean? Ready? It means unspoken. So when you have a tacit agreement or tacit approval, you didn't say it explicitly, you didn't say it out loud. So something about you gave this approval, but you didn't actually say it. So it's implied rather than explicitly stated. All right, let's look at our next one. Many students were bewildered by the questions on the mathematics paper. Focus word, bewildered. Now, you know how I feel about math long time, so I am like those many students. So many students were bewildered by the questions. Were they stunned? Were they excited? Because some students are excited. Were they puzzled? Were they angered? Which of those is closest in meaning to bewildered? Of course, you have these options and you have close options. So again, it will come down to you understanding the meaning of the word bewildered. Ready? Here is your answer. They were puzzled by it. So when you're bewildered by something, you're confused or you're puzzled by it. Very good. All right, let's look at the next one. The facetious speech made by the comedian brought on a wave of laughter from the audience. All right, we have a little help from the context. So our target word is facetious. And we're looking at this word describing a speech made by a comedian. So think of, what do comedians do? And the fact that when he makes this speech, or when he made this speech, a wave of laughter emitted from the audience. So that should help us. So was it impromptu, fantastic, amusing, or horrible? Look back at your context. He made this speech. It's made by a comedian. What's the purpose of a comedian? And look at the reaction. It caused laughter. So what do you believe facetious means? Let's find out. It means amusing. And if you think about it, it fits right in, because amusing is what this speech made by a comedian should be in order to cause people to laugh. All right, next sentence. For the first time in a decade, the company disclosed a deficit in its accounts. A deficit. Is that good or is that bad? So is a deficit a defect? Is it an error? Is it a balance? Is it a shortfall? Look at the context. Deficit is being recorded by a company, and the deficit is seen in its accounts. So which of these four words do you believe closely relates to the word deficit? Ready for your answer? Shortfall. So when you have a deficit, it is not where it should be. It is more or less not hitting the mark, sorry. So a deficit is a shortfall. A deficit is a situation where you are lacking. So keep those in mind. Now we're going to shift gears. We're looking at words that are not the same. So which words are we looking at? We're looking at antonyms. And again, here are the instructions you would be likely to see. For each underlined word in the following sentences, select the word which is opposite in meaning from the options given. Now, the same caution goes. You're looking for the word that is opposite in meaning. However, among the options, you are going to find the word that is the same in meaning. So again, keep it in your mind. I am looking for the one that is not the same. So here's our first sentence. In these difficult economic times, many organizations retrench workers only when necessary. Retrench. Now that word, we don't hear it very often. So we have to again look to the context. In these difficult economic times, what happens when economic times are difficult? What do organizations tend to do when they fall upon difficult times? So use that context now. So does retrench mean dismiss? Does it mean promote? Does it mean employ? Does it mean demote? Difficult economic times. Retrench. Ready? Remember, you're looking for the word that is the opposite of retrench. So if it is the opposite of retrench, what is it? So they would employ, because retrench would mean to dismiss. When you retrench, you're basically telling them, we can't keep you any longer, so goodbye, I'm sorry. So the opposite of that now is to employ. So if you're not dismissing a worker, you are hiring a worker. All right, next sentence. While the employers approved of his work habits, they objected to his radical views. Looking at radical. What does radical mean? And then once you are clear as to what radical means, then you have to think of which of these words says the opposite. So they objected to his radical views. So this would be something that they are not encouraging. Therefore, what would they encourage? What type of views would they encourage? Would they encourage fashionable views? Would they encourage informed views? Would they encourage conservative views? Would they encourage capitalist views? So they object to the radical views. Which views would they encourage instead? Ready? Here we go. Conservative. So radical is at one end and conservative is at the other. So when you're conservative, you're not trying to rock the boat, you're just going with the flow. Easy does it, smooth sailing. Let's go to our next sentence. Being friendly and helpful is characteristic of most country folk. So sometimes it's not a word that you have to find the opposite or even the synonym of, sometimes you get a phrase. So something that is characteristic of means what? What does it mean to be characteristic of? Think of the word character and characterize and use that to help you. So what is not characteristic? What would you say is the opposite of that? So is it unworthy of? Is it uncommon in? Is it unnecessary for? Or is it unreasonable of? So something that is the opposite of characteristic of. Ready with your answer? I hope you are, and I hope it's right. Uncommon in. So something that is characteristic is something that is typical. You find it in most cases or all cases sometimes. So the opposite of that is something that would be uncommon, something you don't expect to see. All right, let's look at our next sentence now. Aunt Mavis is one of the most affable persons I have ever met. Affable. All right. How many of you have seen this word around? How many of you know what this word means? Aunt Mavis is one of the most affable persons I have ever met. Now, the context is not helping you much because it could be good, it could be bad. So now you need to really think, what might affable mean and what might be the opposite of affable? So is it ineffable? Is it morose? Is it ignorant? Is it unhappy? Most affable. This one is a puzzler. So here is your answer. I hope you got it right. Morose. Someone who is affable is someone who is friendly, someone who is approachable, someone who has a positive outlook. Someone who is morose is the total opposite of that. Unhappy is a good guess, but again, unhappy is just one layer. Unhappy just says the person is unhappy. It doesn't say that they're necessarily unpleasant. It doesn't necessarily say that they are unapproachable. Someone who is morose is all these things. They have a completely negative outlook on life, whereas someone who is affable is very optimistic, very upbeat. All right, so let's look at the next sentence. Old Mr. Adams, the new member of staff, is quite eccentric. I know a friend of mine once said that eccentric is what you use to describe a certain type of person who is either very smart or very rich. And anyone who is not very smart or very rich, you just call him a totally different name entirely. So eccentric. So what does it mean when you describe someone as being eccentric? And therefore, what is the opposite of that? So is the opposite of that cheerful, clever, ordinary, or neutral? Again, be careful of the distractors. Be careful of the distractors. So the opposite of eccentric, think of what you usually mean when you describe someone as being eccentric. And now think of the opposite of that. Ready? Here we go. Someone who is ordinary. So someone who is eccentric is usually different in a very different type of way. They have different quirks. They have different outlooks on life. They do things in an unusual way. But if you're not eccentric, that means you're basically ordinary. You're normal. Now, you might have thought neutral, but think about it. Neutral means you're not taking one side or another. So does neutral convey the same idea as ordinary? No, it doesn't. Neutral just means you're unbiased, whereas ordinary means there's nothing outstanding about you, there's nothing different. You're basically the same as everyone else around. All right, our next sentence now. My friends feel that there is no hope to be so prudent in our dealings with the vendors outside our school. Target word, prudent. Now, is our opposite to prudent impudent? Is it thoughtless? Is it eager? is it rash? When you're described as being prudent, and those young ladies whose names are Prudence should know the meaning of the word prudent. And if you have a friend named Prudence, by now you should have asked her what her name means, or you should have looked it up. That's how I found out what prudent means. Had a friend by that name. So, prudent. So, think about the meaning of prudent first of all, and then which of these four words is the opposite of that? When someone is described as being prudent, what are they? Ready? Here we go. Rash. So the opposite of being prudent is to be rash. When you're prudent, you're level-headed. You think about all the different moving parts. So you consider everything. And yes, you have thoughtless up there. But thoughtless is more like you just didn't think about it very long, whereas rash means you made a decision hastily. You made a decision that even though you know one way or the other, you still went with the wrong one. So when you're thoughtless, you just didn't think. But when you're rash, you thought about it, but you still chose the bad one. All right, so let's look at the next sentence. The police have apprehended a man who looks like the country's most wanted criminal. The police have apprehended a man who looks like the country's most wanted criminal. We've heard the word apprehended quite a number of times, so we should know what it means. But you can still use the context. Apprehended a man. So what did they do? They caught him. So what's the opposite of that? Suspected, interrogated, released, or charged. Which of those four? Should be easy, you know, should be really easy. All right, so apprehended is the opposite of released. If you didn't catch him, you let him go. All right, so next sentence. Susan is adept at repairing things. Susan is adept at repairing things. Again, the context doesn't really give you much to work with. So this is one of those cases where you have to have an understanding of what the word means. So you cannot always rely on the context to help you. So it helps to know a wide number of words. Have a very, very extensive vocabulary. So adept means one thing. And we need to know what is the opposite of that. When you're adept at something, you're good at it. So which of these conveys the meaning that you're not so good at it? So we have clumsy, we have foolish, we have impatient, and we have slow. If you're not adept at something, then naturally you're clumsy at it. So you are not good at it. You're going to make a mess of it. You're going to make lots of mistakes. Granted, that's how you learn sometimes. But until you overcome those mistakes, you are clumsy at it. You're not quite adept as yet. All right, let's look at the next sentence now. The bank manager has surprisingly decided to make all the glass doors opaque. Opaque. What does it mean to be opaque? Think about it. I think these are the words we normally learn in grades 3 and 4 when we're doing opposites. So if they're not opaque, which means one thing, when it's opaque, can't see through it. So the opposite of something that is opaque naturally is something that is transparent. So opaque, you can't see through it. It's solid more or less. Whereas transparent, you can see through it. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Such a robust person will not be capable. Robust. Even if you don't know the word, what kind of image does robust convey to you? Think of the word and what it might be associated with. Robust. Ready to think? All right. Now that you have an idea of what robust might be conveying, remember now we're looking at the opposite. So if robust conveys one idea, which one of these four, frail, muscular, vigorous, or reticent, would be the opposite of robust? So someone who is robust is someone who is very strongly built, and therefore the opposite of that is someone who is frail. And notice too, the actual meaning for robust is there. So you had muscular up there. So again, you have to remember, I'm looking for the opposite, not the synonym. All right, let's look at our next sentence. The discord among us will determine the future of our plans, and our target word is discord. Discord. What does discord mean? And therefore, what is the opposite of it? So, is the opposite of discord dispute, radiance, harmony, or feeling? Discord. Emphasis on discord. Doesn't sound like something particularly positive. So, our opposite of discord is harmony. Very good. So discord means you're not in unison, you're out of joint with each other, maybe you're not even agreeing on anything, whereas when you're in harmony, everything is flowing together nicely. All right, our next sentence. The relationship between the two was cordial. Cordial. That is a word that we come across usually for formal occasions. So what does cordial mean? Think about that. And if you understand the meaning of cordial, what is the opposite of cordial? So if you're not cordial, then you are, well, the relationship in this case is strained. So when it's cordial, it's polite, it's easygoing. But when it is strained, then there is a bit of tension in it. All right, our next sentence. Paul's attitude to the academic subjects taught at school was one of indifference. 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 What does that word mean? And then once you get the meaning, what is the opposite of it? So Paul's attitude was one of indifference. Right there, unfortunately, we are not getting a lot of help from the context. So again, you have to understand what the word indifference means. So here are your options: enthusiasm, hostility, boredom, amusement. So if you're not indifferent towards something, and the answer for indifferent is up there, the meaning of indifferent is there, but you need to stay away from the meaning and find the opposite. So the meaning is there, however, the opposite is enthusiasm. So the meaning would have been boredom or just apathy. Apathy is another word you could have used. But when you show enthusiasm, it's the opposite of showing indifference. Our next sentence. The vigilant mother suffered a nervous breakdown. And I hope you are not causing your parents to feel this way. The vigilant mother suffered a nervous breakdown. We're looking at vigilant. Is the opposite of vigilant drastic? Is the opposite careless, watchful, anxious? She is vigilant. Therefore, if she's not vigilant, what is she? What is she? And again, the answer or possible answers to the meaning of vigilant are there. But we don't want the meaning of vigilant, we want the opposite. So the opposite of being vigilant is to be careless. Because if you look at watchful, watchful is what would convey the meaning behind vigilant. So the opposite of being watchful in this case would be to be careless. All right, let's look at the next sentence. His efforts to heal the breach were futile. His efforts to heal the breach were futile. So someone is trying to fix something, but his efforts are futile. And again, futile, if you don't know the meaning, this context will not help you much because that sentence can go either way. So you have to have an idea of what futile already means. So since you already have to know what futile already means, what is the opposite of futile? Is it fertile? Sounds like futile. Is it difficult? Is it useless? Is it successful? So his efforts were futile. That's what we're looking at. And now we want the opposite of futile. Keep that in mind. We're not looking at the meaning, we're looking at the opposite. So if it wasn't futile, then it was successful. Because if it was futile, it failed. But it's successful. All right. So for this segment, we're going to look at something different. We're going to look at sentence completion. So the idea is there's a part in the sentence that is missing and you have to fill it. And notice now, based on this diagram here, you have to fill it with the right shape. So you can't put anything that doesn't belong. All right, so here is what your instruction will likely look like. Each sentence that follows has either one or two words missing. Choose from the 4 options the word or pair of words which best completes the meaning of the sentence. All right, so remember, you're looking for the perfect fit. While the committee members insults across the floor, the chairman tried in vain to order. So you're looking for 2 words now. So which pair best fits? So hurled and restore, gave and maintain, exchanged and conserve, or spoke and impose. So remember now, you need the perfect pair this time, which is a little more challenging than just finding one word, because sometimes you might find that one of the words may fit in the first or the second blank space, but the corresponding word doesn't fit. So you have to find the word that fits in the first blank space. So while the committee members blank insults across the floor, and you have to find the other word now that fits the second space. The chairman tried in vain to blank order. So you must have an answer by now. Which of these options is a perfect fit? Which one is the missing slice? Hurled and restore. So the committee members hurled insults and the chairman tried in vain to restore order. Very good. All right, let's look at our next sentence. Since no nation has the military might to dominate other nations, each depends on to preserve it against its enemies. So now, who do you depend on to help you in a fight? Who helps you against your enemies? So you're looking for the opposite of enemies, because if someone isn't your enemy, then they're your friend. So which one of these words conveys that idea? So finances, each depends on finances to preserve it against its enemies. Maybe you can throw money at the problem. Sometimes that works. Supplies, allies, power. Which of these do you believe is the best fit? Now, some of these might look like they fit, but remember now, you're looking for the best fit. So the best fit is which one? This one. Allies. You need allies, you need friends to help you against enemies. All right, let's look at our next sentence. In recognition of his blank space service, the congregation paid to the priest. A double whopper again. So our first pair, invaluable and homage. Second pair, religious and tithes. Third pair, knowledgeable and respect. Fourth pair, delightful and tribute. Now remember, when you have a double whammy in front of you, you can't just look at which word might fit one part. You have to look at if the corresponding word fits the other part. So, do valuable and homage fit into this sentence? In recognition of his valuable service, the congregation paid homage to the priest. In recognition of his religious service, the congregation paid tithes to the priest. In recognition of his knowledgeable service, they paid respect to the priest. And in recognition of his delightful service, they paid tribute to the priest. Don't they all sound viable in one way or the other? But there is one that fits perfectly. And that one is the one I hope you picked. Invaluable and homage. So his invaluable service, and they paid homage to him. Homage, same thing as respect, yes, but to a higher level. And if you look at it, invaluable is a better word to choose than knowledgeable, because invaluable means that they highly value what he has done. Even though it says invaluable, it gives you the idea it's not valuable, but that's not true. Invaluable means it is of great value. All right, let's look at our next sentence. Michael was so his latest detective novel that he did not hear his mother calling him at lunchtime. So, what was going on with Michael and his detective novel that he didn't hear his mother calling him at lunchtime of all times? So, was he so disappointed with it, or confused by it, or attracted by it, or absorbed in it? Which one of those would mean that he didn't hear her calling him? Ready? Of course, it has to be that he was so absorbed in the novel. And those of you who like to read know this feeling. You're gone in a different world entirely, so you're not even hearing when the food time comes. All right, our next sentence. Nothing had been organized, and confusion seemed necessary, obligatory, compulsory, inevitable. So we have a little context to use. Nothing had been organized, and where there is no organization, confusion is a must. So which of those words mean confusion is going to happen? There is no avoiding it. Which of these words means unavoidable? Do not tell me that you chose a certain word, Please don't tell me that you chose that one. All right, so the one you should choose is inevitable. I know some might have seen compulsory and thought that that would be the answer, but no. Inevitable means unavoidable. So it is something that must happen. Compulsory now is something that you're basically imposing on someone else. But in this scenario, it's not being imposed on anyone. It is something that is going to naturally result from the lack of organization. All right.